Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the racing. We are back live here at BitePoint Racing for the Sportscar Challenge, sponsored by Roasted Records. Round number 6 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And we've got a lot of action here coming for you today. My name is Tristan Earps, joined in the commentary box today by Hamish Munro. And we've got Omet in the production booth here today. Jim's not here, but we've got even better. Omet is in the background to control the cameras for today's action. For round number 6, almost there. We're nearing the leg end of the season. We're about 4 or 5 rounds left, and still a 1.5 hour long race coming for you in the next 2 rounds. But we're here today, and I think we've got lots to play for here. And I mean, Hamish, welcome in. We've obviously got the multi-class action here with the LMP2s and the GT3s, and I think they're going to blend quite nicely here at Gilles Villeneuve.
I think so. I think that, obviously great to be here, Tristan, working alongside you and Omet tonight, obviously, for BitePoint Racing here. I mean, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is a world-famous track, of course. I mean, world-famous Formula 1 racing. Only amount of sports car racing actually gets all year is the Porsche Cup that happens during the Formula 1 Grand Prix weekend. But, we saw on Wednesday evening for Full Throttle Nations GT Championship with GT3 and GT4 action that it's actually quite a good track for traffic filtration and getting through the slower traffic. And for the LMP2 cars, they're going to have a much bigger advantage over the GT3 cars comparatively to what the GT3s had over the GT4s on Wednesday, where off these heavy braking zones and tight corners through chicanes and again, as I said, those heavy braking zones, they're going to get much better runs down the straights to get past these GT3s quite cleanly. The difficulty is going to be early in the race for those GT3 cars to kind of just work together and not get caught up with each other too much, because if they get into dramas, well, that could lead to issues for those LMP2s when they inevitably catch the traffic. So we're obviously hoping for a nice clean start off the start this evening, Tristan, of course, with LMP2s getting through the first few sectors nice and cleanly. I think the main issue tonight's going to be the early turn 1, turn 2 through 3 and 4 at the first chicane, and then the run through the second chicane as well. If we can make it through there nice and cleanly, I think we can get some good, clean green running for the majority of the field, where they can just get into a rhythm tonight and try and sort themselves out, because ultimately it's a very fast lap, it's a tight circuit, but there's plenty of passing opportunities. Obviously there's going to be a lot of action on offer for us tonight there with Montréal. It's one of my favorite tracks in the world, and it's so exciting when we get to come here for sports car racing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely agree with you. From turn 7 to turn 8, that back straight, if we're able to get there nice and cleanly, I would classify that a good first lap. But as you can see, as we're currently on board with only one of the LMP2s, the number 7 coming through now, it is a pretty twisty first sector of this track, and that traffic management after a couple of laps have progressed will need to be quite on point. But that main overtaking point, like Hamish says, is going to be on that casino straight. It is a very, very long straight that allows the LMP2s to stretch those legs out and get all the top speed advantage over the GT3s. And a big thing as well is going to be watching that the braking into turn 13, especially if an LMP2 is in the middle of an overtake on a GT3 or another LMP2. We're going to have to watch and ensure that they have that management under control coming out of the back straight. But before we dive into qualifying, which has got about 7 minutes or so left, let's go through our current championship standings across all 3 of our classes. And so first up, we should see it coming up shortly for all of you. It is going to be our GT3 Pro class, and it is Michael Anderson who sits up in front. He's tied 3-way with Francis Crosby and Zach Houston. And if you've been watching, Crosby and Houston have been neck and neck with each other for the past 2 or 3 rounds, and they've now evidently gotten themselves up to 2nd and 3rd. Austin Schildauer will take 4th position, currently 153 points. John Voigt, and I see someone in the virtual grandstand is rooting for John Voigt, the VR driver, down 144 points. In 5th, Matthew Miles. In 6th position, Paul Basson takes 7th. He's got 97 points to his name. Jordan Butler, 84 positions. Patrick Rich has got 56, and Sebastian Trujillo down in 10th position. And then obviously the rest are not shown here, but there's still a couple more in each class. Moving on from our GT3 Pros, we then move on to our GT3 Pro-Am class. It is David Volp who leads that one with 178 points. He's got himself a nice headway of 28 points to Jason Holland. And then in 3rd position, we've got Blake Piedenpol with 146. So 4 points difference there between 2nd and 3rd. That's a lot to play for. Jeremiah Cohn also a bit further down, 4 points difference there for 3rd and 4th. John Bostwick in 5th position with 131. Jordan Cox takes 6th with Zach Shepard and Lorenzo Araujo in 7th and 8th position. Anthony Wells down in 9th with 97 points. and Timothy Schaefer in 10th. And our final division here for tonight, before we hit the qualifying action, is going to be our inaugural LMP2 class, which we'll see shortly popping up. There it is. Scott Mowry currently leads that, but not by much. 2 points of difference from himself to David Turnbull. Blake Ward also sits currently 3rd position, and also I'd say about a good 13 or so points difference between those two. Mario Santamaria, we've seen this driver being dominating over the past couple of races, and evidently he is climbing that leaderboard and currently sitting in 4th position. But tied with Alan Aguilar, who's down in 5th, 147 points before both of them. Justin Negrete just a bit further behind, 139 points for him. And then it's Justin Bach and Harrison Holiday. And Harrison Holiday, we saw him have a bit of a struggle last week around. Let's hope he can find the traction here at Canada. And Nicholas Acrest down in 9th position, 114 points. Edwin Hendricks, the final driver in the top 10 for the LMP2 class. But that's officially it for your championship standings. We can head into this final few minutes of qualifying. And so far, it's looking pretty good for that LMP2 class. 129.4 for Justin Negrete.
Well, interestingly enough, the only real contender that's within the top 3 at this stage in qualifying, David Turnbull, up there P3. Interesting lap times being shown already by Negrete and Aguilar. Of course, they're within the 29s. They're the only 2 cars to get into the 29s thus far in qualification at this point in time. So, there's some good laps on offer for us, but the big name not on the list was 3rd place in the championship. He's nowhere to be seen here tonight here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So it's important now, Tristan, that these drivers try and maximize on their points. They try and maximize where they stand. And I think ultimately they've got to try and really just keep themselves nice and tidy across the evening. It's going to be very easy for mistakes to be made. Obviously, with the circuit being surrounded by walls, concrete walls, which are not going to move when you hit them, it's a permanent race course that's built like a street circuit, ultimately. So you've got to bring the mentality that you're racing at a circuit similarly to Long Beach or Belle Isle, or for what's coming up next season in iRacing, St. Petersburg, and just try and keep yourself neat and tidy. I think most importantly, you've got to keep yourself out of pit lane. That's the most important thing these drivers need to do tonight, Tristan, because ultimately you're going to lose this race very, very quickly if you have to take that extra pit stop for any reason, whether it's damage or whether it's underfilling the car. So maximizing on strategy and keeping yourself tidy, those are going to be the key elements this evening to get yourself to the top end of town and to get yourself maximum points as well for the race win here this evening.
Absolutely. So yes, I do see what you mean. Mr. Mario Santamaria is not here today, currently sitting 4th in that LMP2 championship. And so he's going to lose out to Alan Aguilar. He's at 2nd currently with the other 129 time being posted on the board. So that's unfortunate for Santamaria, but he'll probably be back. There's still a couple more rounds yet to play for, and he'll try and take advantage, especially of that 1.5 hour long one. I hope he's here for that. Nicholas Acresto, currently still on board with him. He's busy with the flyer right now. And Justin Negrete also up in front. Just came across the checkered flag line. I don't know if he's going to be going around for another lap here. And the qualifying timer seems to have stopped on my side. Not too sure why that's happened, but I'm not too sure how much longer we have of qualifying. I'm assuming it's around the 29-minute mark, maybe 1 or so minute left to go. And that is how it stands. But for the time being, the rest of the cars seems to have returned to pit lane. So that's the GT3 Pros and GT3 Proms. Their lap times are officially done and dusted before we head into the race session.
Yeah, so just to confirm, I think that unfortunately it seems that our timing on screen is having an issue at this stage, but based on my timing right now, which is still running at this point, we're just ticking over to the 29th minute in qualifying. So this is the final lap opportunity for some drivers. They won't get cut off at the half an hour because we aren't running heat races this evening. So because it's a single race, as long as they begin their final lap before the commencement of the 30-minute mark, they can get another lap in, Tristan. So for the likes of Alan Aguilar, who is coming up towards the final hairpin now, he's going to have about 40 seconds from this point to get to the start-finish line and begin another lap here in qualifying. Should be plenty of time to get from turn 9 to the very end, and to be able to begin out another lap here for himself. So he should be getting the white flag this time by. It is 29 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock, so he's got 20 seconds to get there to begin this next lap for Alan Aguilar, and he will run again for another lap as he comes past the wall of champions, gives it a little rub on the way through. White flag for him with 5 seconds on the clock. So One lap opportunity for Alan Aguilar to try and get this car into pole position. He does better his previous best of 129.51 on that last lap. He needs to find 200ths of a second, but he's not going to find it. He's going to pull off, and that's qualifying over for Alan Aguilar. Here, Harrison Holiday has begun another attempt, so he will push on, and Scott Mowry has not bettered his position on circuit. He's had to pull out at the end of qualifying, so Holiday will be the last one. He's pulled over as well, so qualifying is officially done and dusted.
Yes, our championship leader currently sits down in 4th position, and so that's going to be a bit of a difficult one for him to fight up. But Justin Negret seems to be holding up in front still, which is great to see, unless my timing has not progressed further. But I'll evidently grab the timing link from Hamish shortly, and then we shouldn't be blind anymore here for Canada, and we should be good to go still for the rest of it. I think we're just trying to resolve our live timing issue at the moment before we head to the racing. I don't know if we have a warm-up session in between. I always forget with all the different leagues we do. Usually our warm-up session is where we'll head with the track map, and Hamish will be leading that one for all of you, but just waiting to see when that is going to pop up. And let's see. But unfortunately, for the time being, it's just a bit of a waiting game now to see if we can resolve things. And then we'll get straight to the racing here for BitePoint.
Yeah, we're just trying to pull some tactics here to see if things work. And so the issue is, so at the moment, to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit for everyone out there to explain why we're having some tech issues at the moment, our producer's timing link was not working properly. So I've just sent them my timing to see if I can at least run the graphics for IMET this evening, and it appears to be working, so that's great.
Ah, there we go.
Fantastic. So that means
I'm no longer blind.
Well, guess what? I'm glad I now know this works, because this means that if I ever had to, I could produce graphics for someone on their end while they produce the actual broadcast out to YouTube. So we've actually just done some in-house testing, and we now know this works. So that's grand. I'm actually
2 birds with 1 stone.
Exactly. We're learning things as we go along. So Ahmed and I are now going to be doing a bit of tag team here on the production stuff to try and get everything working for everyone out there. As you watch along with us, as we're going to get into the warm-up session here. So 5 minutes on the clock for the warm-up. And of course, for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, if you've never seen this place before, number one, where have you been? How have you been living under a rock? It's been a mainstay on the Formula One calendar for decades at this point. It's got a wall named the Wall of Champions for a reason. It's been hit by multiple champions in the world of Formula One. And it is just a fantastic place to go racing. So, for everyone out there watching along with us, if you've never seen this place, we hope you enjoyed it. It's one of my personal favourite circuits in the world. Tristan, this is amongst my top 5. It is just such a great place. And if you can ever do laps around here in the sim, when you put a lap together around here and you put it together what feels like a perfect lap, you feel on top of the world. It is a very rewarding circuit, but it will bite you hard if you're not careful.
Well, we're at BitePoint, so let's hope the drivers don't get a bit too hard to the point of their confidence. But definitely agree. It's a very much a flow circuit. Lots and corners that when you do it correctly, it does give you a bit of that dopamine spike because you've done it correctly. There's a couple of the corners here where if you do not take it correctly, you will feel it, you will know it. That car will produce a much slower and rendered lap time. And even just mounting a curb almost incorrectly, like we just saw Alan Aguilar there, just a bit too much over the left-hand side curve and unsettling the rear of the car. Anything as small as that could ruin your lap time here, and even your entrance or exit around the hairpin here going onto the casino straight. It is so crucial you get that rotation and not hit that left side wall, because that could be catastrophic. But I think before we progress further into our warm-up, there we can now see our sponsorship banner, which we'll have a chat about shortly. Let's go through our track map here, and Hamish is going to take you through an in-depth corner-by-corner analysis here.
Of course, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, based out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's a world-famous Grand Prix venue built on a man-made island in the rivers that run through Quebec City, or past Montreal and up towards Quebec City as well. There's hardly any elevation change to speak of, but as you can see, it's a very thin and long layout of track. Of course, 12 corners and beginning it up to the first sector. We run it into the tight and tough turn 1-2 chicane, where multiple issues could occur on lap 1. Multiple cars could get caught out in some incidents, and they've just got to try and maximize themselves on the run through here. Then up the hill and down back again towards the braking zone of turn 3, 4. World famous moment, of course, that happened through here. The contact between Hamilton and Vettel quite a few years ago at the Canadian Grand Prix. We run it then through the fast-paced turn 5 and into sector 2 we come to the braking zone of turn 7 and turn 6, and just running it through here, hugging the apexes, jumping a little bit of curb and running it out as wide as possible as you enter into what would be the second DRS zone for the Formula One Grand Prix around here, and down towards underneath the bridge. Braking zone at turn 8 and turn 9. Again, wanting to jump the curb on the inside, get yourself as tight as possible to the left, and then run it out as wide as possible, hugging the wall, brushing it with your outside mirror, and just trying to keep this thing intact as you're running it into the heavy braking zone of turn 10. Most famous moment that's happened down here, Robert Kubica's horrible crash back at the 2008 Canadian Grand Prix, and keeping yourself neat and tidy through this point to then maximize your exit, get as much speed as possible down the long back straight up towards the pit entry in the hard braking zone at turn 11. Great passing opportunity through this final chicane, a horrible slowdown that'll cost you 4 seconds of time if you get it wrong. Getting it nice and tucked in, jump the curb, don't hit the wall of champions, come out the other side, and you finished out the lap of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Pit entry tonight, not going to be too difficult. Pit exit, well, it's fantastic. You come straight out at turn 2. You're skipping turn 1 when you're exiting pit lane here. It's a wondrous place to go racing, and it's going to offer up a heap of challenges, but it's going to offer up some great racing all the same as well.
Yeah, all those concrete walls that we're quite familiar with, as we've already seen them. It's going to be a bit of a challenger for these cars. It's like Hamish has mentioned, there's not too many tech-bred tire barriers around the Canadian circuit over here. It is a very, very daunting experience, especially when you begin to lose the car and you might evidently start heading towards one of those concrete barriers, because it will do a lot of damage to not only your body but possibly suspension as well. And the camber, your toe, anything could possibly break in these cars, especially the LMP2 is a little bit more lightweight and a little bit more flimsy compared to the GT3s, and they've got to watch out for that. As we see all the drivers now lining up, it's about 15 seconds left of our warm-up session, then we'll head through our starting grid procedures. But I can't lie, I'm very excited about this race. We'll have to see how it goes, but for the time being, let's give it one more shot just for the drivers to go through, and there we just see a couple more lining up through the pit lane over here. Warm-up is officially done and dusted, and we'll have to see how that's going to go for the drivers. I'm not too sure if we're able to pull up the starting grid procedure. Seems like we're still having a bit of an issue here with the SDK, and so we'll have a look shortly. Otherwise, we could just read it out plainly. There it is there. So P1 it is indeed for Justin the Grid. He'll be starting up in pole for row number 1. Row number 2, sitting in P2, row number 1 still, is going to be Alan Aguilar, who sits second position. From row 2 onwards, we've got David Turnbull, who sits P3, and Scott Murray, who sits just behind him in P number 4. P number 5 for the LMP2 class is going to be Blake Ward. He sits 5th with Nicholas Secrest down in 6th position. And 7th is again going to be Harrison Holiday, who sits with Justin Bach for row number 4. And one more driver left of our LMP2 class, and that's Gregory Lawrence. And then Zach Houston, the driver who's currently competing in that podium spot, he takes the first lead in P10 for the GT3s. Matt Miles sits P11 with Michael Anderson alongside him in P number 12. P13 onwards, we've got John Voigt in 13th with Francis Crosby. Unfortunately, not getting as good as a qualifying here as Zach Houston. He's down 14th. 15th onwards, though, we've got the likes of Timothy Schaefer, and he sits alongside Wyatt Smith for row number 8. Row number 9 onwards, we've got Paul Basson. He sits alongside Tyler Crow. That's P17 and P18. And then P number 19, we move on, is going to be John Boswick and David Volp. They sit P19 and P20 respectively. P21 onwards, it's going to be Jordan Cox, and he sits alongside Ihor Ochko in P22. Moving on still, it is going to be Zach Shepard in P23 and Lorenzo Arujo in P24. A couple of drivers left to go here. After him, it is going to be Brian Lavrisa, who sits P25. Jason Holland will sit P26. 3 more drivers to go. P number 27 is going to be Blake Pietenpole. Unfortunately, not a great qualifying here from that driver. Anthony Wells will sit P28. And then P29, we've got the likes of James Gilpin, the final GT3 car from the Pro-Am class, who will be observing this entire grid from the back end. Sometimes that's better to not be involved, especially when chaos erupts through the first couple of corners. But from now on, just heading towards the casino straight. The drivers all getting ready, getting a bit of that brake drag on, making sure that the inner rim and the actual tire is nice and warm coming down into turn number 1. You want to give yourself the utmost advantage. And I think it's going to be a great start to this race. Hopefully, the LMP2s and GT3s can keep it nice and clean.
Up towards the line we go for the race start here for the LMP2 cars. Justin Negret on the pole. Green flag, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We're underway for LMP2 action in BitePoint Racing. Up towards turn 1 we come. Early moves already trying to happen here. In towards the tightening turn 1 and 2. They make it through nice and cleanly as the GT3s are now underway as well in behind them. And just running again up towards the tightening corner. It could be chaos down here as there's already a car around. It's John Voigt in the Acura, spun round on the exit of turn 1. We've already had one victim off the road as it's massive dramas off the exit. Michael Anderson as well, off the road off of turn 2. It's all happening here, Tristan, for the GT3s. And as we said, they've got to try and keep it clean through the first sector. A couple of drivers haven't done so, and it's a poor day for the Acuras at this point in time as Zach Shepard's off the road as well. And the Mustang spun round the wrong way back there.
Yeah, that's planted right in the middle there of the sweepers on the left and right. Now heading down towards the start of turn number of sector 2. The LMP2s have been able to keep it nice and clean up in front. Negret is already pulling a bit of a gap there to Aguilar, and he's going to just try and keep that positioning up in front. But it looks like the GT3 class is slightly more chaotic here today. Even I think also what plays really is that the LMP2s is significantly less numbers compared to the combined grid of the GT3s, with Pro and Pro-Am all running in pretty much sync, as we do see a couple of the GT3s now joining in there. And now coming onto the casino straight, this is the battle. Currently, we've got Paul Basson and Francis Crosby's just up ahead of him. But Paul Basson will be holding on from Matt Miles, the current championship leader, and Lorenzo Aruja a bit further behind. Thankfully, it looks like they're beginning to resettle. I do see Jordan Cox dropping, though, off that GT3 Pro-Am list. He's down to 8th position now, 3 positions lost in those last couple of seconds. And so I'm not too sure what's happening to Jordan Cox, but he is losing a huge amount of traction. Here's a bit of a replay. Oh, someone's gotten a tap and it's been affected with the Porsche on the outside line, and that's just a 3-way collected fight there. Unfortunately, just too much racing action going on there onto the casino straight. It's 3 wide and just not enough space for the compression to come apart.
Brian Lavrisa and I believe Jordan Cox was that Porsche that you mentioned that was involved in that incident. John Voigt now into pit lane as well off of his lap 1 incident as lap 2 is underway, and Justin Negret looking nice and tidy at the front of the LMP2 field here as well, just trying to keep himself nice and tidy. We've had Mr. Cunningham join in late here with us to try and figure out some of our tech issues that we've had here this evening as well. Oh, Jim, we have learned things this evening that we now know works. The main thing that we learned is, which I'm actually glad that we now know does work, is if I ever had to run graphics for you whilst you're broadcasting, oh, now he's left. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good chat.
Good chat.
I did see he joined on his phone. I don't think he was in the correct the spot to have a chat.
He's gone to Charlotte this weekend, so he's gone to Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend, and so that'd be why he's on his phone. As Tyler Crow's now gone round as well, and this is down at the hairpin, so more and more issues for these drivers down at the hairpin this evening. And again, it's funny enough for the name of the series, it's one of those bite points around here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Tristan, where drivers often get overlap with each other and they get into some strife down there as well. And obviously with the marks on the walls around here, we can kind of tell where the bite points are. It's the majority of the chicanes and then the heavy hairpin at the back end of the circuit. That's where the telltale signs of struggle really come from.
Yeah, it seems like Gilles Villeneuve is getting a bit of a run for the money for most of the drivers. It looked like the LMP2 class is holding a pretty strong fort up in front, but you know how it goes. Commentators' curse exists, and I'm going to stop talking about them doing well, because unfortunately things do happen, and then I'm going to see an LMP2 facing the wrong way around. So let's hope we don't see that. Let's hope we see them continue that consistent runoff. But for the time being, it looks like the GT3s are just struggling here with a bit of traction. We've seen a couple of drivers now spinning out and losing control, especially from the rear end side of the cars. So representing a little bit of oversteer, too much acceleration coming out of some of these corners. And that is unfortunately leading to a bit of change. On board though with Scott Mowry, and his graph is looking pretty linear. He sits in fourth. He remains in fourth from the start of the race. And hopefully he can try and get himself up. The championship leader is going to want to try and capitalize on the most amount of points he can yet today. And with Negret and Aguilar up in front, remember that Aguilar currently sits fifth, tied with Santa Maria for fourth and fifth position. And if he gets a couple good points here, he could shift himself up and bring the balances completely off, and into the podium spots he might go. But 4.5 minutes or 5 minutes of racing has officially gone through here. We've got about we've gone about 5 minutes through here. Still another good 55 minutes left of racing. That pit stop strategy is going to be crucial here for these drivers, because like Hamish was mentioning here, you do not want to make the error of miscalculating a strategy and having to pit again due to excessive tire wear or possibly an underfuel, as that will completely ruin your possible race strategy here. Maybe it's the go-to. We'll have to see how Gilles Villeneuve is reacting on some of these cars and the tires, if a two-stop is the only solution. But for now, I think my thoughts is a one-stop is going to be the correct play here.
Yeah, I think a one-stop shouldn't need to take tyres ultimately through this race as well. I mean, you can make 90 minutes pretty comfortably on a set of tyres in a GT car, and you can nurse it to 2 hours. So we shouldn't be seeing a change of tyres, especially from the GT3 cars. The LMP2s, well, on a normal endurance race, they're running around about 45 to 50 minutes on a stint. So again, they should easily be able to nurse the tyres to an hour throughout this race. I suppose the main thing the drivers will have to try and maximize it within their strategy if we go into overtime. If we have to do an extra lap past the hour marker because we cross the line with 15 seconds to go. Now, if Negret can build up the gap that he wants, and if he's smart, if he builds it up to, say, 15 seconds and there's enough time for him to slow down and actually save the extra lap, well, that could obviously be a strategy for him. Or if he knows he can save fuel and not everyone else can, and he knows he can make an extra lap and no one else can, that's also a sound strategy where you push and you try and push for the overtime lap, because that will then open up the opportunity for other drivers to either run out of fuel or be forced to come into pit lane and not give you too much of a challenge going forward. As we can see, Negret is just starting now to catch the first of the GT3 cars at the back of the field. That is Jordan Cox, who we saw in the incident earlier on with Brian Lavrisa down here at turn 10. So, you know, Jordan, he's in his own little world at the moment. About 15 seconds is the gap
is out.
up to the next car, as more and more cars are continuing to battle here. But for Zach Houston, I mean, what a dominant performance at this point in time. As you mentioned, Secrest has had an off track and he's gone. He is back to pit lane. Car is nowhere to be seen right now.
Yeah, I always hope when I see the out label on the left-hand side, I always hope it's a bit of a disconnection blip and we see the driver bounce back up, but I'm not seeing that happen here for... Oh, there's another car off on the left. There he is, Nicholas Secrest. And he's pulled off, so I'm wondering what happened to him. Yeah, there he goes. He finally goes off again. This could possibly be a bit of a technical issue, possibly with the steering wheel of sorts, because it's a bit of an odd place to park the car. If it was a bit of a misbreak, you know, I don't think he would have stopped on the track permanently. It looks like he's struggling with something here. We'll try and get a bit of a replay. We're currently observing the beautiful rivers alongside Gilles Villeneuve, and yeah, I did see the red car going down, so possibly just the camera angle. There he is there. So coming out of the casino hairpin now, this might be a couple of laps. I think
that's not even him. It's not even showing me where he's actually been. He's still parked up at the moment, so he's blinked out. And then it's recorded him going off track, but there's no signs of him off track because he's blinked out. So he's obviously had a ping issue at some stage here tonight. So
here he goes off again.
Yeah, so now he's off again. So that's a shame.
Yeah, a real shame there for Nicholas Secrest. Let's hope that he can bring it back, though. There's a lot of time to play for in this race, and it's definitely not over just as of yet. He's got a whole strategy to play still, and possibly get himself a bit higher up in that LMP2 running. There can be a couple of drivers who could possibly have some incidents, and he can try and claim back from that. But for the time being, and we can possibly try and get a track map up and running for you just to see the track segregation currently between the three classes, to see where they all situate, because as we mentioned, Negret has already started catching up. And there we now see him coming through the chicane at the end of the Casino Straight. And there the first of the GT3s are starting up. It is going to be the number 8 over there in 8th position overall. And that's Mr. John Voigt now, who's slowly, getting closer and closer. Not 8th overall, apologies. That's 8th in the GT3 Pro class. And Justin Negret is slowly but surely catching up to him. And it's only a couple of imminent moments now before they all begin to merge together like a box of Skittles around this Canadian race track. But someone's off again there in the background. This is currently on board with Zach Shepard. He's had a bit of an issue there through the S's. And he's actually had massive contact with the Corvette. That's Anthony Wells, who's been spun around going into the downhill right-hander and just unfortunately getting clipped by the front bumper there of the Mustang. Goes around and makes contact again. Anthony Wells, he's gone off with another Corvette. That's James Gilpin, it looks like, and they've gone off just onto the runoff at the exit of turn 8. And what on earth has happened between these two now? It's going to be side by side. Was this a bit of a braking error? Wells is very, very far away here. Did he possibly just miss his braking zone? So they come into the breaker. That's massive.
He was collected by Michael Anderson. So we saw Michael Anderson was trying to split the gap here, Tristan. So he's trying to run 3 wide. So he's got a car to his left-hand side. He's trying to go down the middle. And there's contact here for sure. Yep, exactly. Massive contact. That has sent both cars off. That's a real shame for those Corvettes. And unfortunately for Anderson, not the night that he'd be wanting.
No, definitely not. They fortunately landed up at the one section of the circuit where there is actually Tech Pro barriers, and so they've gone into some nice cushioning. But obviously at that speed in the GT3 car, there's definitely still going to be damage on the body and possibly even the suspension that they're going to have to repair, as that was a very, very quick crash. I mean, unfortunately for Anthony Wells, not much he could do after the tap happened. You saw that Corvette was pretty much uncontrollable, and then the likes of Gilpin, he was just a passenger trying to take the corner as normal, and unfortunately a flying and spinning Corvette, aka a fidget spinner, just comes in on the inside line and nothing you can really do to avoid it. But back up to the top of our LMP2 class, it is David Turnbull, and currently the only fight that is technically worth watching for the time being in our LMP2s is that fight for third, as Maori is getting very close to the backside of Turnbull. The rest of the LMP2s have distanced themselves a bit. As you can see it on your live timings tower, the white numbers represent over a second of distance in between each driver. The yellow represents just above 5/10 to 1 second, and then underneath 5/10 is an orange number figure. So there it just breaks into orange now. Maori moves into just under 5/10 distance to Turnbull, and now we'll see, will he get a bit of a slipstream advantage, or is he just too far back? And looks like he is losing a little bit of time here on the Casino Straight.
Quite able to just tuck up in behind Turnbull here as they run it down towards the final chicane, past the wall of champions once again, and continue to push on here. We've also got a tightening battle within the GT3 Pro field as well. Crosby, Basson and Miles are all tucked up within 1.5 seconds of each other, and these are two of the bigger movers to get onto the back end of the podium, really. That's what this battle's for. It's for P3 in the Pro class at this stage. Crosby's currently up 3 spots, Basson up 5. Miles is the big loser out of this. He's actually dropped off the podium as these two have come past him. But the real big gainer is Wyatt Smith. He's up 6 total positions in this race into the overall top 10, thanks to those issues for Nicholas Sechrist, which has found him at the back end of the field and struggling to get that LMP2 car back to fighting ways at this point in time, Tristan. But lap 9, 13 minutes into this race, we're settling into our groove now and into our rhythm, and I would say we're probably halfway to a pit stop happening in this race. I think we're going to see one within the next 15 minutes or so. And I would say the latest that we're going to see anyone pit, or the earliest we want to see them pit, around about 27 minutes, and the latest to be about 33 minutes. Is if you can make 33, it means the 27-minute markers can get home as well. But again, you're kind of limiting yourself. If it does go overtime, you're really pushing the limitations on your fuel tank and your fuel usage. But we can see as well, these guys are starting to get up to the back of Wyatt Smith now. So the battle for P2 will now move on. Instead of just being for P3, it's for 2 podium positions. And Porsche of Smith, it's going to be a real struggle here when Crosby and co get onto the back of him.
Yeah, indeed, and you can see Crosby is getting closer and closer, and as I mentioned in the past 2 rounds, Crosby and Houston have been pretty much rivals in that GT3 Pro class, and currently it is Mr. Wyatt Smith, who currently positions himself in between the two. Houston up in front, Crosby in third position. So he's going to be wanting to try and chase onto the backside of his rival here. But indeed, your prediction for the pit strategy is right. From what we've seen over the past couple of races, it is around the half-an-hour mark that we see most of our cars coming in here to serve those pit stops. Some able to extend it a bit depending on the driving style. Others having to come in slightly earlier just from not doing any form of fuel saving. I would trust that most drivers are doing at least a little bit of fuel saving here just to make sure that they prevent themselves from running out of fuel. That's always the worst way to end such a long race, is by running out of fuel, because it's something you physically cannot control. It's not like limping a car back home after a bit of a wall tap. You essentially go into full-on low fuel mode, and you get to a point where the car just stops itself and you cannot do anything, no matter which gear you're in, even if you're in sixth gear and trying to get your fuel usage to a minimum. But Holiday's gone off. That's one of the other red LMP2s, and looks like the struggle continues from Holiday. From the previous round to the next, it seems like he's had an issue in the downhill right-hander again. This is him trying to navigate past GT3s, and that is Shepard on the outside line now in the Mustang. Into the right-hander he will go, and just losing it on the backside. Sorry, that's not the downhill turn coming into just after turn 2 and 3. That's on the exit of the back straight in turn number 8, and he's just lost the rear end of the car there. Fortunately, avoids the wall, and he can continue racing here with no damage and just a bit of tire scrubbing, which will evidently rub off, and he can continue racing as of normal.
Back with the battle for P2 in the GT3 Pro Class. Bassen's got himself a slowdown penalty here, so that's going to allow the Mercedes and Matt Miles past him up towards turn 10. But for Bassen, he's now going to try and regroup and recuperate the position as he's real deep under brakes. Nearly drills the back of Miles' AMG Mercedes right in front of him. And I tell you what, this kind of shows what the BOP is kind of favouring at the moment here. Tristan, we've got Porsche, Merc, Porsche, and then we finally get to an Aston and Timothy Schaefer at the front end of the Pro-Am field. So the Germans are dominating here in Montreal, and for Bassen, he wants to try and reapply this pressure out of Miles, get this car back into P4 in class, and just keep battling away. But maybe at this point in time, maybe it's time you've given up position, just tuck him behind, save some fuel, maybe try and get past in the pit lane, where there's not much more that Miles can do but defend you with taking less fuel or hoping that you don't take less than him.
Yeah, the strategy always changes depending on race distance. Sitting in those half an hour to 45-minute races, the strategy changes from trying to sit in the backside of a driver's stream, and as you mentioned, just getting a bit of fuel saving going on. It changes to a strategy of just trying to push as hard as you can in those 45 minutes and not really caring about the fuel usage. But unfortunately, in a 1 hour race like this, and the fuel limit restrictions in terms of maximum tank capacity that's been brought here by BitePoint, the drivers do indeed have to watch out for that. And like you say, sometimes the best strategy is to just sit in the slipstream. You make up the time from braking into that dirty air, and then you can just lift off a little bit, especially if it's just maybe 20 or 30 or 40 meters into the braking zone. And that extra amount of coast does allow a bit of petrol to be saved in these cars, and they get to continue going towards the end of the line. But we're about a quarter of a way here through our 1 hour long race, and those pit stop strategies will be coming to you in about 10 minutes or so, probably a little bit longer than that. I'm predicting we'll probably see it slightly longer than our normal prediction time, but closest battles, as you can see, it is indeed Smith versus Crosby, and that is what we're witnessing right now on your screen. The battle is down to 2 tenths currently, and that's the position of 10th overall, but currently second in class that Crosby is trying to chase on. Unfortunately for Crosby, it's not going to be the easiest field day to catch up to his competitor. It's a 7-second gap almost from Smith to Houston, and so once Crosby does get past, and from the fighting that they're doing now, it's just allowing Houston to continue running away, put in those consistent lap times in the clean air that he's probably running in, and it's going to be a very difficult battle here for Crosby to try and chase the lead.
See as well, some of our biggest movers thus far in the race have actually come from further back in the field, aside from Wyatt Smith, front end of this little battle pack here, as we know that Lorenzo Araujo is up 8 positions back in P6 at this stage, or 16 at this stage. Holland's up 7 in P19. Smith, though, up 6, we can see on our screens now, into P10 overall. He's leading this battle pack at this stage, with Crosby and then Miles and Bassen continue their battle. Right behind them as well, I hear Oxco, 2 up 5 into P17, and John Boswick up 4 into P15 as well. So there's some good gainers in amongst the midfield who've taken advantage of the early issues for some cars out there. And Again, Tristan, just trying to mitigate your mistakes, keep yourself clean. You'll find free positions on the road as Crosby looks to go up the inside at turn 10 now. And Wyatt Smith, is it going to be a drag race down towards turn 11? Well, he might have to tuck back in, get some slipstream and try and sneak past, but he's going to get the side draft off the Porsche as they run it down towards the braking zone at turn 11. Can he get this done up the inside? Into the braking zone they come, and the Porsche has to back out of it. Smith tucks back into P3 in class as Crosby comes through to take claim at P2 in the GT3 Pro class at this stage.
Yeah, what a great overtake there from Crosby, and that's going to boost him up into second position now. It's now the chase. 8 seconds of a gap as he almost gets put back in the battle there with Smith as he looks on the inside line almost. And Smith's got to watch out now because Matt Miles, the championship leader of the Pro Class, will be wanting to try and fight and get ahead as well. He's chasing for the same thing that Crosby's chasing for. Now side by side into the downhill sector, and it's very, very close between the two. There's a better camera angle, and unfortunately Smith's lost out on that run, and now Matt Miles is on the outside line and almost switching up yet again, but fortunately he's been able to dive. A mistake though from Crosby on the outside line that converts to the inside. There's contact between the two, and Matt Miles is going to get ahead. Unfortunately, it's a spin around for Wyatt Smith, and that is a spoiler gone on that back end of that Porsche, and that's going to be a lot of downforce lost, unfortunately, on the back straight. And man, you hate to see it between the drivers, but just one bit of contact leads to another, and that was almost Matt Miles receiving the side tap from Wyatt. That would have spun him around, but he just narrowly avoided it, and that's put him into second position. But look what it's done for Houston. Almost 11 seconds up now for the lead of this race.
The major issue for Wyatt Smith now, Tristan, is right. He's a good 7 minutes away from actually being able to make it home on a pit stop. So he's got to make a choice now. He either comes in a pit lane, fixes the car, puts the fuel in it, and then guarantees himself a second stop later, or he nurses this thing for 7 minutes, which it looks like he's going to. So he's going to try and nurse it now until the proper pit stop time. I think it is the better strategy because he'll ultimately probably give up more time traversing through pit lane twice over. So if he can nurse this thing, which is going to be very difficult, of course, Porsche's mid-engined, they rely on that rear downforce. This thing's going to be a handful to nurse around now for the next 5.5 minutes, because ultimately the earliest he can pit is that 27-minute marker. He's got to try and get this car there as best he can as the race leader comes round his outside. He's trying to, and there it goes, and that is the main issue with it. Yep, that's the main issue with running the Porsche without a rear wing, and he's had to tow back. It relies so heavily on that rear downforce, Tristan. Being a mid-engine car, it is undrivable when you lose that rear wing, and ultimately Wyatt has learned the hard way. Unfortunately, I think the better choice would have been just to come into pit lane and fix the car and get yourself in for another stop later in the race. I think that would have been the much safer choice for him at this point in time, as Anthony Wells is just going a bit slower back here in the Corvette. We saw him involved. Was it him or was it James? No, it was him earlier in the race, involved in an incident where he was hit by Michael Anderson into James Gilpin. But yeah, Anthony having a struggle here tonight. But we've got a tightening battle here in LMP2. Mowry has gotten back onto the rear of David Turnbull, and these guys look to fight their way forward throughout the rest of this race.
Yeah, indeed. And it's going to be a good fight for Mowry. Let's hope that he can keep it up in front. That is so unfortunate, though, for Wyatt Smith. And talking about it, the 992 is actually a completely rear engine-based car. The engine sits right behind the rear axle, and that's just even worse with the rear spoiler going away. That's just complete downforce loss where it matters the most. All the weight sits neatly on the backside, and you've literally got no control at the back. And I was kind of thinking that, if, in my opinion, I would have probably come into the pit lane. I think if it was a Mustang or something front engine placement, I think you would have been able to nurse it home a bit easier with the weight distribution, but. I don't know. I can see it in the down.
Yeah, even the 296, being that the 296 is a mid to rear engine car. I believe the Corvette is the same. I believe that's also more a mid-engine car as well. So if you're in a Corvette or a 296, you could probably nurse it a bit easier. But for the likes of the Porsche or the Lamborghini, for example, or even the Acura, you've just got to come in and commit to the stop, unfortunately, because without that rear downforce, you haven't got the control over the rear wheels. You haven't got the downforce pushing the wheels down. And that struggle then with all that weight in the rear end, without being able to get the power down cleanly, ultimately in any change of elevation, the rear end's just going to slip on you. And that's exactly what's happened to Wyatt Smith there through that corner. It is one of the highest elevation changes around the whole track. And the car's just become unglued and unweighted, and it didn't have the downforce to back up the power input as he's exited the corner.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I kind of felt like that was going to happen for Wyatt Smith, especially just with the Porsche, knowing what we've spoken about now. And as you mentioned, that slight bit of gradient loss completely unsettles the weight of that car. And as he comes down on the bottom of that gradient drop, the car tries to compress, and like you mentioned, the power to downforce ratio is just not enough for the car to keep itself balanced, and around he goes. And now he's actually sustained even worse damage, and that's actually going to be worse than a 2 pit stop. It's because he's gonna have to come in now regardless. He might not even come out. That's the issue with this now, is that might have just brought in a bit of demotivation for Wyatt Smith. He might unfortunately sit the rest of this one out. But back onto the good news of the good racing that we've been seeing here for the LMP2 class, because it is still Turnbull to Mauri, and these two have not been able to settle their beef for the time being. Mauri is stuck behind and cannot get past there, and he's gonna have to continue working to try and progress further, but he's going to have to take it fair and square. We know David Turnbull, also a very, very fast driver in the LMP2 class. This isn't going to be a quick nitpick for the likes of Scott Mauri, and he's going to have to take this properly with some good racing etiquette, whether that's slipstream, whether that's a dive up the inside, or just confusing the driver up in front with a possible fake. We'll have to see how that works for Scott Mauri, but he is the championship lead. He does know what he's doing, and now it is the mission to try and get up towards the top. But again, it's the same situation with Houston. The longer he sits behind Turnbull, the easier it's going to be for Aguilar and Negrete to run away with this race. It's already 8 seconds total distance to Justin Negrete up in front, and he's well into the mid-pack. They're fighting with the GT3 cars, and as you can see, the other LMP2 still somewhat in the rear side of the mid-pack, whereas there we see Mr. Justin Negrete. He's almost fed through the entire GT3 grid already, so quite a bit of a distance between them. There you see the likes of David Turnbull and Scott Mauri, so they've still got a couple more cars that they need to cover before they get to the front runner of Mr. Justin Negrete.
Got the GT3 Pro battle continuing on just ahead of this battle now, as Matt Miles has lost it here through turn 3 and 4. Trying to get a better angle of it for you. He is still going, but that's dropped him off the podium for the GT3 Pro class at this stage. Fortunately for Paul Bass and Francis Crosby, they can't really take ultimate advantage of it because of the LMP2 cars that are trying to come past them at this stage. They've got to try and get out of the way and not hold them up too much, because it could end in tears, as Turnbull is just getting held up here by Crosby. And, well, there's a bit more lap traveling involved in this too, because Crosby's going to try and get past this lapped GT3 car that's ahead of him in Blake Pittenpole, as he now just sneaks up the inside. But oh, it is messy traffic filtration right now, and ultimately they want to try and get through this as cleanly as possible, as Mauri's now being held up down the back straight. He's given up bulk time to David Turnbull ahead. It's now out to over a second.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately the battle that's going to end. But there we see the first of the pit stops coming in. Justin Negrete, our leader of the LMP2 class, has dived in, and so will Blake Ward. And so now we'll see those pit stop strategies coming in. Crosby also jumps into the pit for the GT3 Pro class. And a great prediction from your side, Hamish. 27 minutes on the dot, and that's where we see the LMP2s coming in. The GT3s, I suspect, will maybe be 1 or 2 more laps if they can push it. Like we mentioned, that headroom for the overtime would be ideal for these drivers, but as you see, Crosby's already decided to come in. There's another driver who's decided to pull in. Evidently, it's the Porsche of Ihor Ochko, and he will come in for the number 25. Now, one of the Corvettes as well. I believe that might be Anthony Wells. Indeed, it is, and he's obviously been out of the race for some time. Being another driver in, it's David Volpe. He's coming in to get that pit stop done and dusted. And there, Crosby's already off. He's back out. He's exiting the pit lane, hopefully for his only stop here in this race for the number 92 Mercedes-AMG, and he heads back out on track. Where does he sit though? And it's coming out in 6th position, just behind looks like I'm not too sure, that's John Voigt, indeed, just behind John Voigt. So just outside of the top 5 there for Crosby. Sorry, I'm getting confused there with Anderson, but he's just come into the pit lane. And for the time being, we'll have to see when Houston and Miles come in. Those are 2 drivers who have not pitted. Same with Bassin Arujo. And Voigt as well, I believe, has not pitted. No, Voigt has pitted, I think, or he may not have, as he was quite far back from the grid. There comes Houston. So 1 more lap running on that 29-minute mark. and Houston comes in to serve that pit stop. We'll see if the other GT3 Pro drivers will join him, or if they'll also try and extend for just another lap. Turnbull and Mauri also coming in now.
Yeah, so Wells finally gets out of pit lane after fixing that car for 2.5 minutes. Matt Miles has made a massive mistake down at the chicane, as has, I think that was Paul Basson. So both of them have made mistakes down there. And that looks like there may have been some contact. So I have to wonder if possibly one of them was wanting to come in and the other didn't realise, and then contact's been made. Let's watch this back.
Yeah, front bumper's gone on that Mercedes as well.
Oh, it was a very late dive. I have to wonder if the Porsche was hoping to come in, but he wasn't prepared for Miles to keep going, and I think that was the case.
Yeah, a bit of a miscommunication, it seems.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that has to be on Paul, because if you're planning to come in, you can't rely the car ahead to come in at the same time as you. That's cost both of them massive time, and evidently it's going to allow Francis Crosby to have gotten way ahead of Paul Basson. I mean, he's now out to about nearly 12, 13 seconds nearly over Paul. And you got to give a little bit more allowance when coming into pit lane here, especially when it's right on the racing line, Tristan. And ultimately, Paul didn't do that this time by.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is that on some tracks, the pit lane, especially if it's on the left-hand side and the racing line's on the right, but some tracks it does allow you to very tracks, and it is a bit difficult to identify when a driver's coming in, and the only possible way you can know is just by waiting a bit, and you'll eventually see that they brake slightly later, they don't rotate the car. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, I think that one is on Paul Basson, because whether Matt Miles was coming in or not, he was on the appropriate line regardless, on that outside line, which is the racing line and the pit entrance line. So if Paul Basson was wanting to come in, I don't think he should have been on the aggressive inside line for a possible dive, as we still... here comes Anthony Wells out of the pit lane. He comes, and unfortunately, it looks like he's not having the best of days. One of the Mustangs just behind, managing to avoid him standing on track. Thankfully, he held the brakes and didn't try and correct the Mustang. Easy prediction there to get around. But yeah, like you mentioned, not a great day there running for Matt Miles. The championship leader will not be happy with the results that will be rendered here today. Crosby's going to get ahead of him now, just going across the checkered flag, and now it is officially the two rivals going to be fighting each other. But my goodness, 17 seconds of a gap between Houston and Crosby. This is a lot of time to play for here, and Houston has got a very good advantage to keep the lead of this race.
Yeah, well, Miles actually came out the betterment, luckily for him, over himself and Paul Basson. So Basson, who came straight into pit lane after making that contact, has actually lost a fair bit of time, about 3 seconds back up to Matt Miles at this point in time. So for Paul Basson, he's got time to gain now back up onto P3 in class, but they've also now got to deal with the top two in the Pro-Am class in John Bostwick and Tim Schaefer, as they're battling for a race lead. And this battle's really tightened up through the pit stop period. So we've got a tight little battle, inter-class battle, if you will, between GT3 cars that's being led by Matt Miles. It's being tailed by Paul Basson, with the battle between the top two of the Pro-Ams in amongst them in a beautiful sandwich of GT3 cars. It's Merc, McLaren, Aston and Porsche. We've only got a couple of other manufacturers not involved in this one, and we'd have the full cornucopia, but it's good to see 4 different manufacturers battling for overall position like this, Tristan, and it looks like they could be battling like this for the rest of the race.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, about 28 or so minutes left to go. Houston's gotten himself a yellow flag. I don't think it's going to play too much into that gap between himself and Crosby, but he should not. He should try and avoid those yellow flag penalties at all costs, or even a drive-through penalty. If he gets himself a drive-through, that is going to ruin the perfect advantage that one driver can create. As I see one of the GT3 Pro-Am drivers had a yellow flag, but he served that, done and dusted. But 27 minutes of racing left. We are well past, not well past, but 3 minutes past our halfway point here. And so the drivers are just going to want to replicate what they've already done. Try and stay consistent. Keep that fuel usage relatively nice, with a possible bit of fuel saving here or there in case that overtime lap does come into play, because 1 lap difference can mean winning a race, or unfortunately losing down to 6th or 7th position, depending on how many you lose and depending on how tight the grid is. But still on board right now with John Bostwick. He's got Timothy Schaefer just a bit further behind him in the AM chasing onto the McLaren 720S here. And we'll have to see how it goes between the two of them. Timothy Schaefer, for some reason, the Aston Martin logo on the live timings has decided to dissipate itself. It's on our side, but unfortunately you cannot see it, but that's all good. It's not a massive issue as Timothy Schaefer still chasing onto the backside of Boswick. Negrete is also back onto the rear of Aguilar for the lead of the LMP2 class, and getting very, very close indeed. This is coming out of the casino straight now, and reducing that to about 3/10 of a distance. But as you can see, Aguilar just getting a much better exit onto the Wall of Champions section there, and extending it again to 5/10 as they manage the lap traffic. And unfortunately, Negrete will have to hold the inside line there around the back marker. That's going to be a huge amount of time loss, and you can see it there. It's almost up to 7/10 now, just having to take that inside line. And Aguilar is going to continue trying to play these strats, trying to force the driver behind to tricky situations so that he can just try and keep the lead of this race and possibly pull himself into that podium in the championship standings.
Real interesting here that through the pit stop period, so Aguilar's gone 2 laps longer than what Negrete did, and I think that ultimately what's actually lost Negrete this race lead was getting caught out in traffic when he's exited pit lane. And that's one of those crucial strategy plays that we mentioned earlier in the race, Tristan, of actually planning your strategy and making sure that your traffic filtration is going to be as easy as possible. And ultimately for Negrete, because he came in so early, he ended up coming out amongst a bunch of GT3 slower traffic, so he had to try and traverse that, whilst Aguilar was still in nice clean air. So that's ultimately what's lost Negrete this race lead, but what it's going to give us is a great battle for the final 24 minutes of this race, where the race lead's on and traffic could still have a major part to play in it, especially if they find one of those bulk packs of cars in amongst the GT3s, because if they catch it at the wrong time, it could pay dividends for one of these drivers and it could hurt the other.
Yeah, absolutely so. And that's what Aguilar is just going to try and keep himself in the benefit books here, is that if you can get a lapped car in between the two of them and possibly force Negrete to, take a bit of a difficult overtake, it's just going to continue to extend that gap, because you can see that Negrete looks like he's slightly faster in terms of that net lap time. He keeps on getting onto the backside of Aguilar, but then something shifts. Aguilar gets behind the back marker and he's able to make use of it pretty wisely in terms of where he overtakes the back marker. But now it's down to 2/10. Aguilar's made a mistake coming down the downhill, and as you can see how much closer Negrete is, and through the traffic management they will go. Not much of a difference between the two of them. Negrete's been able to process that back marker with a relative amount of ease, and now it's down to 2.7 tenths here between the two. The slipstream is definitely going to be an effect here, and this is going to be a good battle to watch on that casino back straight, because it is now neck and neck between the two of them. Negrete makes a mistake though on the entrance into that right-hander. Look how much time he loses to Aguilar, from 2.5 to 5.5 tenths. Just not taking it as good as Aguilar's taking it here. So let's see if we can get the rotation here around the hairpin to possibly keep within that slipstream. It's down to 5 tenths here. I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep that slipstream value. Oh, Aguilar's had a blip. Aguilar has disappeared off of the grid here. I'm hoping it's a quick blip and we see him return back to the top, but for the time being he is not there. There he is. Right, we're all good. No, he's blipped again. He did rejoin, but he's back, and now he's blipping back and forth, and man, he's making this a difficult one to talk about. And let's hope he stays there now. I see he keeps on blipping in and out, but this is in all really terms bad. It's not good news. Yeah.
No. He might get a ping flag here. Well, he's only just rejoined back on screen, but as soon as he rejoins, he goes again. So if they have the ping flag set to the server, if this continues, he will get sent back to pit lane. But this is horrible for Justin Negrete, because he can't do anything. Can't do anything about the blinking of Aguilar. He can't. If he tries to overtake him, he doesn't know where he is. So he might make contact, and then something else can happen to him, which worsens it. All he can do is sit here and hope that Aguilar's internet holds up and he gets a chance to get past him before he blinks out again. Because ultimately, it's gonna scare Justin, because he can't predict where he's gonna be. Sure, he can think if he's gonna be on the racing line, he might be on the racing line, but if Aguilar can see Justin, he can defend him. If Justin can't see Aguilar, he can't attack him. As he's trying to come past now, and I think Alan may have just let him go there, because I think he realizes that it would be very unsafe and unfair to stay ahead of Justin Negrete, and he may just be waiting now for that internet just to stop spiking and resettle itself so he can push on once again.
Yeah, absolutely so. And I'm not going to lie to you, it is pretty good sportsmanship shown there by Justin Negrete to keep himself up in front. That's great stuff. Sportsmanship shown by Aguilar to keep himself just in second bay there. But he also does understand that he unfortunately can't abuse that blipping, because it'll be very difficult. Paul Basson witnesses himself going around again. And not a great thing to see. That's coming through turn number 6. No, don't move, stay planted. And he decides to move last minute again. And Rougeau and another one of the LMP2s go off the track. They're trying to avoid him. That is not good signs, unfortunately. And we'll have to see how this is going to work out. But Negrete's still up in front. And he's now extending that gap to Aguilar. Maori is just been at bay here. I mean, Hamish, he's not been able to get past Turnbull. And Turnbull has really got his highest defense game on yet today.
He's done so well just to hold off Maori to this point. And for Scott Maori, he may just be playing the waiting game of let's wait for the final 15 to 10 minutes to really put an assault on here, because ultimately there's no worth in trying to get past him at this point if you're not ultimately faster than him. Comparatively, between their fastest laps of the race, Turnbull's was a 30.9, or 9.4 to be exact. Maori's was a 30.77. So there's only a 0.17 of a second difference between their fastest laps. So they're on pace together. So for Maori, I think he knows that they're on pace together, and he doesn't want to have to try and get involved in too hotly contested a battle, knowing as well, right behind them, is Blake Ward. So this is becoming a three-way dance here for the final podium position. And for Maori, he wants to try and defend against Blake, but attack David. So for Maori, he's just going to try and resettle. I think we'll finally see him start to attack him within those final 15 minutes, but with Blake Ward right behind them, he may speed up the process if he decides to put an assault on Scott Maori here. And if you Turnbull, you're hoping he does. So that may just hold him up a little bit, give you some gap, and give you some settle on the podium in P3.
Yeah, absolutely so. But he's got to watch out now, because like we mentioned, that Blake Ward is getting closer and closer. And this one-way fight between Turnbull and Maori is now turning into a two-way fight. And that's going to be Turnbull, Maori, and Ward. And we'll have to see how this is going to scale, because up in front, the 15-second gap to Alan Aguilar and Justin Negrete. And so those five drivers are not going to merge just as of yet, and I don't think they are even towards the end of this race. We've got 19 minutes left of racing here, heading into our final quarter here of racing at Gilles Villeneuve, and we'll have to see how this is going to scale for the rest of the drivers. White Smith, as you can see, they're down in 8th. He's completely out of this race, which we saw a bit earlier on in the GT3 Pro class. But for the rest of the GT3 Pros, it's unfortunately gotten a bit stale, even in our GT3 Pro-Ams. As you can see, it's all just white figures across the board. Most drivers not within any attacking distance. Matt Miles gets himself the yellow flag, but it's not going to play too much, as Rougeau is 17 seconds behind in total distance. So for now, the action is all on the LMP2s, especially that battle for third position, because it's going to be Turnbull to Maori to Ward. Which driver is going to be the best driver to jump up here into that final podium spot before the end of this race?
Well, of course, for those who haven't joined us all season long, tonight's race here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve marks the halfway point of the season. We've got 4 rounds to go after tonight now, 10-round season. Next time out will be on your screens, will be, of course, March 6th, as we'll be heading out to Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache for Interlagos for the next round. Then we've got the 90-minute affair going at Virginia International Raceway on March 13th, the week after. Then we're heading out to Road Atlanta for the second to last round before we end it all out at the wondrous Sebring International Raceway at the back end of the season. It's a great set of tracks to go, as Anthony Wells and that's James Gilpin as well. Both of them have had a moment, seems. Although Gilpin and Wells, I think, actually were separate incidents down there, Tristan.
Yeah,
so,
two separate.
But just, unfortunately, they're connected by the fact that they're both in Corvettes. And they've both had an incident, as Michael Anderson as well has had a moment too, down at turn 10. Although I wonder, is it an incident, or is he just parked it up to let the LMP2 race leader past him? That's what it was there. The LMP2's coming past, and he's had to move out the way. And because he slowed down so much, it classified him as crashing, when in fact he did not. But for Alan Aguilar, he's still hot on the heels of Justin Negrete. We have got 16 and a half minutes left on the clock. Are we going to go into overtime or not? Well, we've just started lap 29, roughly on the 17 minutes to go marker and at an average of 90 seconds per lap. And if we do the quick maths here, about 93 minutes, 6 minutes, what would that be? That'd be 12 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe an extra lap on here, Tristan, because by my maths, 16 and a half minutes would be 11 laps, and we had 17 to go. I think we could be on for an extra lap.
Well, the extra lap would definitely play a bit of a strategy game here. And like we mentioned, those drivers who decided to take maybe 1 or 2 more laps before pitting might be at a bit of an advantage here. It means that they'll have a bit more left in the fuel tank to go. And the others who pitted early will have to begin fuel saving if they detect that Negrete is going to pull them around the track for one more time. Obviously, those drivers lapped by Negrete will be fortunate enough that they don't need to complete the lap if they are very close by Negrete. If he just comes across checkered and the other drivers come across checkered, it means that they don't have to continue another lap. They'll just be classified as done deal in this race. But now looking up at the inside, look at how close Blake Ward is getting with the likes of Scott Mowry. And going on to the casino back straight now, the number 82 is squirming all over it. This beautiful blue livery versus the artisan-style doodle art up on front on Scott Mowry's car. And as they head down into the casino straight, you can see that Scott Mowry's gotten a bit of an exit there as Blake Ward is trying to make his way around. It did jeopardize his exit speed slightly, and so he's had to back off a little bit. But Mowry's gotten even closer to Turnbull. He's broken it down again under 5/10, and there he extends it above 5/10 again as Turnbull gets just a bit of a better exit out of the Wall of Champions final chicane over there. And this three-way fight is still going to escalate further because here comes a bit of lap traffic, and this could be crucial as to how they play this. Lap traffic car does not have to move. Remember that this is the rules in multi-class racing with LMPs and GT3s, is that the LMP has to do all the work to get past. The GT3 does not have to jeopardize his race in order to let the LMP2 cars go past. They have to get past him when they find it convenient and not do any damage to either of the two involved parties. And so that's how it is. And unfortunately, I feel like that's the correct play here, is allowing the LMP2s to just judge by their own control. And as you can see by that control, it hasn't worked out because Blake Ward is down to a second now from Scott Mowry.
Really held them up there. Apparently, according to Omet, timing's back again, so we may make a switch over now back to Omet's screen just to push on here. But what we found throughout this race, we're just about to make the changeover very quickly.
I'm only seeing GT3 Pros on the other live timing board. I don't see any of the other classes. So I'll have to just double confirm that before we do a full switch over.
It has switched now. It's made the switch. So we've got the other cars on screen. Although for whatever reason, that's a big moment there. That was Greg Lawrence. That's Greg Lawrence's car off the road.
Just coming onto the back straight there after turn number 7. He's gone off. For some reason, I can only see the LMP2 class. I'm not too sure if it's the same for you, Hamish, but we'll hope
on the graphics, it has all 3 classes.
Yeah, I see that.
But it's not showing all the car logos for whatever reason. My timing's still showing everything, so if you want to continue running off my timing, Tristan, that's still fine. But obviously we can call the action now off Omet's screen too, as we've got Paul Basson continuing now to pressurize Lorenzo Araujo here in the little battle between the 992 Porsches as they fight for position in P4 on the road for the GT3 Pro class. I'm just keeping an eye on my end on that LMP2 battle. It's continuing to heat up now between them. As we can see, the race leaders are just starting to chase down Araujo and Basson as they fight for position at this stage in and amongst P4 and P5 of the Pro class. And for Alan Aguilar and Justin Negrete, they're tight on the heels of these two drivers. They continue to fight for pride and pressure here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve this evening.
Yeah, and we're getting to those closing phases now. 12 minutes left of racing. And this is where it's going to get very close between all the drivers. Aguilar's also right on the backside of Justin Negrete. It looks like he's been able to sort the internet issues out, and looks like the blipping is completely eradicated, which means he's back to competing for the win of this race. And if you have to ask me, I think he's slightly more deserving up in the front there. I mean, he was holding it fairly nicely, and then the blipping I think he just pulled the sportsmanship card and decided this is not really fair to the driver behind. But now that all is sorted, I think he's in that contention to try and get back up in front. And Maori, Turnbull, and Ward, their fighting is still escalating. We've got a bit of a battle going on, though, between the GT3 Pros and the Pro-Ams. It's the lead for the Pro-Ams is also under contention is Boswick to Schaefer now. Schaefer's slowly but surely breaching into that 1 second marker behind Boswick. It's the same for Paul Baston on the backside of Arujo in 4th and 5th position. They'll be fighting for 4th in the GT3 Pro class, and so we'll have to see how that scales. But now you see the LMP2s trying to navigate traffic, and Blake Ward again gets stuck behind the big Mustang coming through the corner, and he's got to sacrifice there in order to not pull a risky move. He's going to lose even more time here. And Scott Murray gets past the Acura with relative ease. The other drivers will have to try and get past on the back straight, but fortunately that is the best place to get past back markers, as they can sit one side and the LMP2s can simply sift on the left or right hand side depending on what they choose or where the GT3 driver sits. But we are breaching into that final 10 minutes of racing. Yeah, this is where it becomes crucial in terms of if the drivers have done enough fuel saving, or are we going to see any limp mode activists enabling towards the end of this race, and unfortunately sitting in a high gear just trying to get the car over the line.
And just wanting to fight their way to the very end of this race as we tick towards 10 minutes to go here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And Montreal has really turned it on this week through the Full Throttle Nation Ultimate GT Championship and into BitePoint Racing as well. It has been an incredible battle all throughout this race for multiple classifications, whether it was the GT3 Pro battle at the start of the night or the LMP2 battle for P3 that has grown to Maori and Turnbull in behind as well, and now too with that Pro-Am fight, which has just started to separate a little bit. The two tightest battles that we've got going for ourselves here is remaining to be in that LMP2 classes. Well, the front runners of the LMP2s have extended their gap with Negrete and Aguilar fighting away, and Maori, Turnbull and Ward have now just started to separate themselves as well, as we can see on that little picture-in-picture, to really gain and gather. What's causing these cars to extend? I have a feeling, Tristan, they may realise they're going to go one extra lap and they may just be trying to fuel save now.
Yeah, I think that might be the same thing. Yeah, is that most of the cars are realizing that there might not be enough fuel to get towards the end of this race, and that fuel saving mindset is going to switch in. And obviously, the only way to really fuel save, especially on MP2, there's no engine map for fuel saving. It's just going to be lifting and coasting. The GT3s, some of them do have a fuel saving map, but oftentimes it's not really the greatest thing to select, because you lose a lot more time than what you can do with manual fuel saving, as it tries to save fuel on the straights by limiting engine power. And unfortunately, in a battle, especially if you're in a position like fighting for the podium, that's not going to help you whatsoever. When you fuel save into braking zones, you can simply block the other car from trying to get past by parking your car in the correct manner and just going slightly slower in and out of the corners. And that allows you to A, fuel save, and B, keep the driver behind you at bay. Zach Shepard, there he comes into the pit lane. He's just coming out now. So Zach Shepard, I think he's had to make a second pit stop there, unfortunately. Not too sure why. And so we'll have to see how that goes for the rest of them. Greg Lawrence, obviously sitting in that pit lane after the huge amount of damage. He sustained it down in 10th position. And we'll have to see how that goes for the rest of them. But 8 minutes left of racing, and Negrete still leads this race.
I would say that there is either Zach had to take a stop earlier in the race because of an early incident within the first 5 laps, or he has underfueled the car. I think more than likely, though, because Michael Anderson's in the same position. I think they both had incidents early in the race, so I think they both pitted early to kind of re-situate themselves in and amongst the fuel game and the fuel window. And unfortunately what's happened is they've now had to take that second stop, which has given them more time up on the timing screen. Ultimately, I mean, their race was, it's an hour-long race, Tristan. Ultimately, I think their race was done on lap 1 in terms of a possibility of taking home a race win, but there's still points on the board and they want to try and fight their way to the very end. Importantly, I think that's what they really had to put the focus on, and that's what they've done, just to get some points down. New fastest lap of the race, by the way, for the LMP2 class, 1:30.24 the last time by for Blake Ward. So he is on an absolute heater right now, but the fastest car in Sector 1 was David Turnbull right in front of him. So both of those guys are pumping out some fast lap times and some fast sector times, but Blake is the fastest man on track right now as he sits P5 overall as he battles for a podium here inside the LMP2 class.
We're getting towards that final leg end where things are going to start to become important. And there we go. Sorry, apologies about that. I slightly lost the visuals there, but I'm all back and ready to go. As we do see Alan Aguilar is putting an immense amount of pressure onto the backside of Negrete. And yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, this is going to be the pinnacle battle here for the lead of the LMP class. What on earth? Negrete is coming to the pit lane with 6 minutes left to go. Was this an underfuel from Negrete? Did he himself realize he can't go for the overtime lap? And he's lost out in this race for the battle for first. He's going to lose second even because Mauri's going to catch up. So what on earth has happened to Negrete here?
I think he's underfueled that car by a lap, and he's realized that it's going to go a lap longer. And he is literally going to have to come in and splash and dash that car to the end. Although ultimately, it's an 8-second stop, so that's a fair amount of fuel for an extra lap. Well, I think Aguilar's going to be fine because he pitted on lap 20, Tristan, and he went 20 laps. He's only gone 16 to this point. In fact, Negret's gone 18 laps and then 17 laps on his second stint. So I think he was always going to need a second stop in this race based on that fuel usage alone.
Yep.
And for Aguilar, if he's able to fuel save this thing, we've got 4 laps to go, 5 minutes on the clock. Oh, that's massive contact though with Ward as he's battling away. Oh my god! That was like they didn't want to have to go past Basson.
Yeah, it looked like the LMP2 on the inside was obviously sitting behind the stream of the Porsche there. I don't know what the motive was there. It looked like he tried to brake and possibly try and duck onto the right-hand side, but there was an LMP2 on the backside of his spoiler. And now the two of them have had contact, and unfortunately for Turnbull, he's going to sustain a bit of rear-end damage. There was a bit of a shunt on that back straight section, and I'm not too sure what the main cause of it was from. I'm not going to lie to you. A bit of an odd one, as obviously Paul Basson was blocking slightly, and I believe Turnbull just wanted to try and get away, and he's managed to up in 4th position now. And we'll have to see how this is going to work out. But the likes of Blake Ward, he comes in as well. Another driver in the LMP2 class who's underfueled in this race. And it's all changing in the LMP2s here, unfortunately. And Negrete is going to move back up to 4th position. So he's really not going to lose too much after that pit stop. And he might even, if another driver has to come in here like Scott Murray or David Turnbull, he might be able to reclaim a podium spot here. But there is only 4 minutes left of racing. About 3 or 2 laps left to go. Ochko comes into the pit lane as well, from not having enough fuel in that car. And is that a slow? I'm not too sure if that's a slow Acura. Almost looked like an Acura that's running out of fuel there, possibly, as he's losing out quite a lot of time coming into the braking section. That's John Voigt, but no, he's not. He's continuing strong around to the wall of champions. He goes. No pit stop happening there, but it's going to be important to keep an eye. Basson gets a black flag penalty in the final 3 minutes. And that's not going to be great for him. He's going to move out of the top 5. But it's important to keep your eye on that to fight for the LMP2 class, because it might change evidently in the next 3 minutes.
We got 3 minutes to go. They're averaging 1.5 minutes per lap. I think Aguilar's fine. I think he's fine on fuel. I think he can make it to the end on this one stop, because ultimately he could make lap 40 in this race to get to the end, where he's just coming up now to begin lap 38 of this race with 2 minutes and 40 or 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go. So I think ultimately there's 2 laps left. They're going to go a little bit of overtime, but I think he can actually get there. I think Alan Aguilar has strategized this race to perfection. The question is, can Maury and Turnbull make it when they went 19 laps on their first stint? And this would be the cutoff line for them on their fuel. Oh, it's going to be an interesting scenario right now for these guys. It is going to be real interesting whether they can make it home. They may be coughing it across the line, but ultimately they're going to have to do an extra lap here.
Yeah, I think so. This is definitely going to be another lap around the clock, yeah, as Aguilar's controlling this. And like you mentioned, this is danger for those couple of LMP2 classes. LMP2 class cars who are biting it on the edge. I mean, guys, it's called BitePoint, but we don't expect you to ruin your race over trying to be as realistic as possible, as we'll have to see how this is going to end up for all of them. But yeah, this is getting towards the end of the race now. It's the final nail-biting moments before we come across the checkered flag. We do have Aguilar in the bottom right-hand corner for you all to watch his progress. And we'll see as that timer ticks towards the end of the 1 hour mark, we'll see where he comes across the checkered flag in order to start and whether or not it's going to be another lap. But as we're both predicting, I think it's definitely going to be another lap here that the drivers in the LMP2 class and the rest will have to go around for yet again. And so this is going to be a tough one to play for, yeah, especially for those LMP2s who are slightly underfueled, if they can get the fuel saving or not. But I think, like you mentioned, I think Aguilar has planned this to perfection. He's gone for 20. He can definitely go for another 3 or 2 laps here in this final stint. And as we've reached that 59-minute marker, it's 1 minute left on the clock here for Aguilar to bring this home.
Yeah, so he's caught the white flag this lap. So he crossed the line at 58 minutes and roughly 35 seconds. So this should be his checkered flag lap, which means he doesn't need to go again. Harrison Holiday has come now into pit lane. So Mowry and Turnbull are now pushing for this lap as well. The other question I have to ask is, does Zach Houston make it home? Because he's just completed lap 36 and gone on to lap 37. He went 18 laps on his last stint, so he's had to try and save a lap of fuel across this lap. He's going to have to do one more. Does he make it home? Although, in fact, he doesn't, because Aguilar has just come past him. So he's going to get the checkered flag this time by.
Yeah, it looks like Houston sacrificed a bunch of time there, possibly.
Yeah, I think he's deliberately let Alan Aguilar past him, so he doesn't need to do an extra lap of this race. This is brilliant for Zach Houston. But for Alan Aguilar, what a drive for him tonight. 20 laps on his first stint, 19 laps on his second. Fuel save game, perfection. As he comes past the wall of champions, checkered flags out at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And we've gone 15 seconds of overtime as he gets the checkered. Alan Aguilar wins for the LMP2 class. Zach Houston has taken home the race win for the GT3 Pro class as well. And nursing the car to the final few corners comes John Bostwick, who will win for the GT3 Pro-Ams. An overall podium as well for the GT3s as he wins it in the McLaren. What a race to the end there. What great battles we had, Tristan. A little bit of chaos along the way as well, but ultimately, we love a fuel save game. And that played out to perfection for Aguilar, Houston, John Bostwick, who got home in the one-stop strategy. Fantastic effort from those guys.
Yeah, and you can see that how happy Houston is. He's doing donuts on the pit exit line over there. He's very satisfied with that race result, and he's been able to save it. And maybe, never know, maybe he didn't have enough fuel left in the tank to continue one more lap, and that might have been a blessing in disguise for Alan Aguilar to be close enough for him to sacrifice that 10-second distance to Mike Miles and come across the line, not having to do another lap. And so that could possibly be where the excitement's from Houston, as he is very, very happy with that result, and that'll pull him well ahead of Crosby, who sits third position, quite a couple of points extra. There's Aguilar. He's also very happy about that one, as you see loads and loads of donuts being thrown across the track here. And that is officially it for the BitePoint Racing Sportscar Challenger, sponsored by the Roasted Records team. And man, what an absolutely incredible race we had here. And Gilles Villeneuve did not disappoint, I've got to say. Hamish, I know you mentioned your favorite track, and I've got to say, it's earned its reputation for it, because, man, the LMP2 and GT3 action today was non-stop.
Within my top 5 favorite tracks for a reason. It sits below tracks such as Long Beach, Bathurst, and the Red Bull Ring within my top 5 of favorite circuits around the world. But there we see the podium finishes. Alan Aguilar finishes ahead of Scott Mowry and David Turnbull. So no matter how much they battled tonight, David still came out on top Mowry eventually came out on top over David Turnbull there. But Blake Ward really put them to the sword this evening. He just couldn't quite get there in the end, unfortunately, thanks to his fuel strategy. We've got 3 interviews to get through here this evening, including our LMP2 and / overall winner in Alan Aguilar as well, with Zach Houston and John Bostwick too. So we will quickly bring in our GT3 Pro-Am winner in a moment's time. These are our race results for this evening's race for round 6 of Season 1 at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It is Alan Aguilar taking the win over Scott Mowry and David Turnbull, with Justin Negrete ahead of Justin Bock. Blake Warden, Harrison Holiday, Nicholas Seacrest will finish at the back end of the LMP2 field, and down below our GT3 race winners, with Zach Houston winning ahead of Matt Miles for the Pro class, with Francis Crosby on that podium, with Justin Bostwick, Timothy Schaefer and Zach Shepard making up our Pro-Am podium as well here this evening too, as we'll bring in Justin Boswick, our pro winner this evening, to have our first little quick chat here. John, welcome in. Congratulations on the race win. Massive effort for yourself. You fought hard ahead of Tim Schafer for the majority of the last half of that race. Were there any issues with some fuel saving though? Because we saw some drivers coming in for a second stop and we thought, oh God, are they even going to make it to the end? Were you glad that we didn't go a full 90 seconds extra and it was only about 15 at the end there?
It was so close, and I pitted and it was saying I was going to need an extra lap and a half. I have a 1 lap margin on my fuel, and then I got it down to 0.8. I noticed Tim fuel saving, so I was like, I'm going to have to just balance between, and hopefully he doesn't catch up too much, because I feel like he was faster, especially in qualifying. It was close. Just management.
I mean, you managed it so well. Obviously, there was a fair bit of chaos early in the race for a lot of the GT3 class through turn 1 and 2. How are you finding and approaching that corner, knowing that it could have been quite chaotic? And how was it feeling knowing you made it out the other side relatively cleanly and just able to push on throughout this race?
Yeah, it was very just cautious. First gear, take it easy, especially when it was tight and we were too wide for the first couple laps there. And I just took it easy. I did have a zero contact with the guy in front of me, and he spun and I felt horrible, but I was like, I just need to keep driving. It's inevitable and things happen. That was me last week. So I just took it and ran with it, and then slowly put paces on Tim until we all started fuel saving, and I just pushed it a little further.
Lagos next week. Nice wide Grand Prix style circuit once again. Is there anything you've been able to take out of tonight's race here at Montreal, or even in previous rounds, that you think are going to be applicable at next week's race when we head out to Brazil for the next round?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to using your gearing and taking advantage of it. And if the car is not rotating, make it rotate, downshift. And I think Brazil is going to be the same way. It's going to be a technical, as wide as it is in certain areas. It is a technical track.
Well, we appreciate your time, John, for coming over to chat to us. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we let you go this evening?
Absolutely. Yeah, shout out to Mr. Anderson. He let me get a set of Invicta pedals from him, and that's what changed the game tonight, is not racing on a Logitech. So we'll take a win.
I always recommend if you're gonna upgrade something on your rig, first upgrade should always be pedals. Second upgrade should be your wheels. So
Absolutely.
You've got a hell of an upgrade in a fresh set of pedals. Or John, appreciate your time coming over chat to me here this evening. Best of luck next week out at Interlagos.
Thank you so much.
And we thank you for your time once again. John Boswick, Pro-Am winner here this evening out at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Next up, we have our Pro winner this evening for the GT3 class in Zach Houston. Zach, welcome in. Pro class winner here this evening. And it was in dominant form and fashion. Now, we saw at the end of that race, Alan Aguilar came past you. Was there a thought that, we're going to go a little bit overtime here, I might just want to let him pass? Or was it that he just came past and you had no choice in the matter?
I had the feel to probably make the extra lap, but that was the best lap I've ever had, seeing him come up behind me. I was excited.
I mean, I suppose it's like, well, I've got gap behind. I don't have to now run an extra lap around here. I can come home and I can pull straight in pit lane pretty much once the race is over, I suppose. But I mean, you had a fairly decent run here tonight. Obviously, there was a fair bit of chaos in behind you off the race start for the GT3 class, of course. You've started on pole. You've made it to the end of the race in the race-winning position as well. Is this a track that just really clicks with you as a driver, or was this maybe more so that you were just feeling on fire tonight coming into this race?
I got a ton of time in this track on F1, but I've never really raced it in a sports car. Apparently I like it. I've always liked it on F1. Thought it was a little tough. It is a little tough for sure with the walls being close, but off of Bathurst, it didn't seem too bad.
I mean, you've put together a fantastic race after tonight. Obviously, Interlagos next week. We've previously been there in the Ultimate GT Championship as well, which you ran at. Is there anything you're going to take out of that race and try and apply here in BitePoint next week when we go racing at Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache?
Yeah, I'm taking the tune. I ran ran my tune for there this week, and it worked well. So I'm going to be running that exact same tune, and hopefully it gives me the same result.
Well, we hope it can for you as well. Zach, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we let you go here this evening?
Shout out to John Boswick. That was a crazy comeback through the field from him. It sounded like he really put on a race.
Well, he did indeed to get home in that Pro-Am win position. But Zach, congratulations on the win here tonight in Montreal. We wish you the best of luck as we head out to Sao Paulo next week in Brazil. Appreciate your time once again. Zach Houston, our Pro class winner here this evening for the GT3 class. Congratulations, Zach.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Next up, we have our overall winner here this evening and LMP2 winner as well, who managed to get home with one hell of a fuel save game, Alan Aguilar. Alan, congratulations on the race win. What was the thoughts and the feelings when you saw Mr. Justin Lecrest come into pit lane with only a couple of laps to go and you were able to keep on going?
I think I knew from the first round of pit stops that he wasn't fuel saving because I was able to extend a couple more laps than him. So I was just waiting for him to jump in the pits and retake the lead.
And it all worked out for you pretty well. You had a poor moment there with some bad blinking at one stage, and we saw you sort of just let Justin past you. Was that because you knew you were blinking, or was that the game of, well, I know I'm going to get past him eventually anyway when he pits, or maybe even a combo of the two?
I was getting the network warning, and so I just assumed I was blinking, and I also knew that Justin had to make another stop, so I just let him by and didn't want to risk an accident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fair play, obviously, for you for doing that, to allow him to come through and not risk his and your race by doing so as well. So hats off to you for that one. How was traffic filtration tonight as part of the LMP2 class? I mean, it was relatively easy on Wednesday for the GT3s with the GT4 class. Was it a similar scenario tonight with LMP2s and GT3s, or was it slightly tougher because of the higher pace discrepancy of those GT3 cars compared to the LMP2s?
It was pretty difficult. Needed a lot of patience. I just used that as an opportunity to fuel save a bit more, so I just tucked my nose in behind and got him on the exit.
It's a smart play. It worked out well. And, of course, Interlagos next week. What are you going to take into that one that you maybe could take away from tonight's race or previous rounds this season and hopefully apply next week when we're heading out to Brazil?
I think I need to work on my qualifying. I've started second in every race I've competed in so far, so that's my goal.
I mean, consistency though, you've been starting on the front row. I mean, that's pretty good still.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, I appreciate your time coming over chat to me here this evening. Is there anyone you wish to give a shout out to before we let you go?
I guess Justin Negretti. He was good competition today.
Well, we appreciate you coming over chat to us, Alan. Congratulations on the overall and LMP2 race win here this evening, and we wish you the best of luck next week out at Interlagos.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll bring an end to our broadcast here this evening, and we appreciate your time in joining us once again here on Motormouth Broadcasting. And we ask you as well, if you're joining us for the first time, or you've been here for a little while and you haven't done so just yet, hit the like button, the subscribe, the bell icon too, so you're notified whenever we go racing right here on the channel with so many different racing styles on offer for you. Week in and week out, there's a little bit of everything for everybody out there. And we implore you, it's a free thing you can do. It helps support us as broadcasters, and it helps support the series that we broadcast as well, bringing more eyes onto the drivers, meaning that these drivers get the viewership that they deserve. We also want to give a shout out to our stream sponsors as well. DRE Digital Race Engineer have been with us ever since the beginning, as well as Track Camps for Gourmets, and our newest sponsor coming into 2026, The Roasted Record as well. You guys can use code SIM20 at checkout to get a little deal on your brews and tunes that you order straight to your door. They'll ship pretty much anywhere as long as you're willing to pay the shipping, or you can also go and visit them in-house down in Florida. Find some tunes, taste some brews. They've got handcrafted coffee from all around the world. You guys can get a taste of holidaying anywhere it might be, whether it's down in Italy or even here in Australia. You can taste some local beans and brews from all around the world. Coming up next week, March 6th, we're racing at Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache for the next round of this season of the BitePoint Racing Sports Car Championship. For myself, Hamish Mono, Tristan Haps alongside me, and Omet back in the background doing the production stuff as well. We appreciate your time joining us here this evening. And we'll see you guys next week when we're out in Interlagos. But until then, stay safe, drive hard, and as always, bye for now.